Okay, welcome to this Karen Armstrong Buddhism Life of the Buddha in Chapter 3, his Enlightenment, Section 6 anthology video. Okay, so we'll read it and then we'll ask some questions about it and we'll think about it. Let's start. He had, of course, already been behaving along these lines by observing the 5 prohibitions, which had forbidden such unhelpful akusla activities as violence, lying, stealing, intoxication, and sex. But now he realized this was not enough. He must cultivate the positive attitudes that were the opposite of these 5 restraints. Later he would say a person seeking enlightenment must be energetic, resolute, and persevering. In pursuing those helpful, wholesome, skillful, kusala states that would promote spiritual health, ahimsa, harmlessness, could only take one part of the way. Instead of simply avoiding violence, an aspirant must behave gently and kindly to everyone and everybody. He must cultivate thoughts of loving kindness to counter any incipient feelings of ill will. It's very important not to tell lies, but it was also crucial to engage in right talk and make sure that whatever you said was worth saying, reasoned, accurate, clear, and beneficial. Besides refraining from stealing, a bhikkhu should positively rejoice in taking whatever alms he was given, expressing no personal preference, and should take delight in possessing the bare minimum. The yogins had always maintained that avoiding the 5 prohibitions would lead to infinite happiness. But by deliberately cultivating these positive states of mind, such ecstasis could surely be redoubled. Once this skillful behavior became so habitual that it was second nature, the aspirant, Gautama believed, would feel within himself pure joy, similar to, if not identical with, the bliss that he had felt as a boy under the rose apple tree. Okay, so let's look at this. Is Armstrong right in claiming the 5 precepts predate Buddhist teaching? Let's have a look at these 5 precepts. Here she is observing the 5 prohibitions, and let's number them in red because we've got that here. Number 1 would be violence. I abstain from. Number 2 actually is stealing. Number 3 is then to do with sex. Number 4 is unhelpful speech, and number 5 is intoxication. So these are the classical 5 precepts which pop up all over the place in Buddhism. And they are pre-Buddhist ideas. That's absolutely the case. Brahmin ideas, and Brahmanism also includes a prohibition on monks taking drugs. Another key idea in Brahmanism is ahimsa, which is really the first precept from taking life. Harmlessness, as it's called. Ahimsa will be taken to an extreme in Jainism, and the Buddha perhaps encountered Jains and learnt from them in the Shramana movement groups that he encountered before his enlightenment as a wandering ascetic. All of these are mentioned in the 5, at least in the Pali Canon, and Mahayana seeks to alter, to adjust the emphasis importantly as well. That needs to be said. So Armstrong is right in that the Buddha as an ascetic would have practiced, no doubt, the 5 precepts before his enlightenment. He would have observed these and thought they were unhelpful. The Jains would have seen these as important. The sadhus of Hinduism, early Hinduism, yes, also, and so on. Okay, we read on. But now he realized this was not enough. He must cultivate, and here it is, the positive attitudes that were the opposite of these restraints. Let's highlight that. The positive attitudes. We'll go for orange actually. Positive attitudes that were the opposite of these 5 restraints. Now, what is the positive attitude? Well, Armstrong has her own take on what these positive attitudes would be. But probably we could say, in answer to this question, what are the opposite of the 5 precepts here? Okay, we could say this. There is another pre-Buddhist concept that gets incorporated in Buddhism, and it's this, but the Buddha gave, and the Buddhists have given it their own interpretation. They're called the 4 great Brahma Viharas, or a Vihara is the place where a monk lives. It just means abode, and Brahma means great, a great abode. And there are these great abodes. This includes loving kindness or benevolence, which is metta, compassion, which is karuna, empathetic joy, which is mudita, and equanimity. Now, maybe these are the opposites and the proper opposites. There's not an exact opposite to each of the 5 precepts, but maybe these 4 are the opposites. What in turn does Armstrong say? Well, she says the following. Later he would say that a person seeking enlightenment must be energetic, resolute, and persevering. Energetic, resolute, and persevering. And the idea of energy or effort you find both in Theravada and Mahayana. The 6th of the Eightfold Path is effort. Bhikkhu Bodhi, famous modern Theravada Buddhist, said meditation is effort. And in Mahayana, also effort or energy, vira, is one of the higher of the 10 perfections. And he says, so these Mahayana ideas of the perfections, the 6 or 10, include virya. And what is virya? It's the attitude of gladly engaging in wholesome activities. And it sort of functions to cause one to accomplish wholesome or virtuous actions. Virya means in Mahayana the state of a strong man, a practitioner's energy or exertion. It's identified as a necessary prerequisite for achieving liberation. Is it the British wartime spirit? There's an element of that sort of stiff upper lip determination that is behind vira. The Theravadan teachings on perfections can be found in the canonical books, but they're a slightly different list of perfections, and that includes things that Mahayana would reject. And Armstrong avoids these later debates. She doesn't include these or refer to them, but these are contested ideas, and that's the important thing to say. And Mahayana, the perfection of wisdom sutras, the Prajna Paramita, and its culmination in things like the Lotus Sutra, have 6 perfections, later 10 are developed. So, in any case, whatever the opposite is, it would be helpful, wholesome, skillful. All of this is important. It's this kind of statement of the opposite. It's a good thing. Properly, Armstrong here mentions each of these that promote spiritual health. Now there's a vague word, spiritual health. And she's avoiding the debates about the goal, the proper goal of Buddhism. Not interesting. She doesn't engage in debates about what spiritual health actually means. It is not interesting. She's avoiding contested debates here. Ahimsa, harmlessness, could only take one part of the way, and this is Jainism, where again ahimsa is Jainism. Jainism isn't enough. That's kind of what the Buddha himself, it seems, decided. What does he go on to say? She go on to say, instead of simply avoiding violence, an aspirant must behave gently and kindly to everything and everybody. Let's pause and look at that. An aspirant must behave gently and kindly to everybody, everything and everybody. So kindness is a very important word in Buddhism. In general, it's an attitude towards others characterized by friendliness, care, gentleness, love. The Buddha is thought to have often talked about admonishing us to be kind, but not just to be kind or to think kindly manner, but to become kind. That's the virtue, to habituate kindness. We should express it through our actions to such a degree that we become the kind of people who are kind. Genuine kindness is not a devoidness of selfishness, but a desire, and it's not the desire to dominate or hurt others. It's a desire for generosity, helpfulness, patience. When others are slow or inept, speaking in a pleasant manner, making strangers feel at home, going the extra mile for someone. Kindness is love expressing itself through speech and action. We pick up a little bit more here. He must cultivate thoughts of love and kindness. That's perhaps the great Brahma Vihara idea. To counter any insipid feelings of ill will, it's very important not to tell lies. But it was crucial to engage in, now follow this if you can, it's crucial to engage in, it's very dark, let's go for a lighter colour, back to green. It was crucial to engage in right talk and make sure that whatever you said was worth saying. And this is a reference to the Eightfold Path. Armstrong is having a sort of kind of scattergun effect. What are the opposites of the 5 precepts? Is it the Eightfold Path? Is it the 4 Brahma Viharas? Is it the 6 or 10 parimas, perfections, virtues? What is it? Well, Armstrong is just including it all, throwing enough mud at the wall, hoping to hit the target, but never really coming down on any one of these ideas. And maybe that's right. As within Buddhism, it's what works, it's what's useful. So we continue. Besides refraining from stealing, a bhikkhu, a bhikkhu, where is this? A bhikkhu should positively rejoice in taking whatever alms he was given. Whatever alms he was given. And what's a bhikkhu? Well, a bhikkhu just means a monk. There were bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, which is the female monastic community. In the Fourfold Sangha. Now, Theravada claim the Fourfold Sangha for themselves, but this is a pre-Theravadan, pre-Mahayana idea. It's true, Mahayana has a less of an emphasis on the Fourfold Sangha, more blurred lines between the ordained and the laity. But a monk, someone who's committed. Now, the Theravada would say yes, someone who's following the virtue of renunciation. For Theravada, one of the 10 virtues is renunciation. Nekiyamu, I think it is. That wouldn't be the same for Mahayana. Taking whatever alms, there's another word here we'll pick up. So a clear activity of a monk is the alms and the alms round. That's a key activity. Giving, expressing no personal preference, it should be taken in the possession of the bare minimum. The alms round was there to support the monastic community, and people could give and only, and make merit in their act of giving alms. The alms round is still very much a feature of Theravada, but very much not a feature of Mahayana practice today. So there's a lot of talk here about what is the opposite of the precepts. What is the teaching of the Buddha? What is he wanting us to habituate, what to develop, as it were? And this is related to the Buddha's Dharma. There were a lot of religious debates at the time of the Buddha, and in particular speech was important. Right speech, having the right talk or the right teachings in what you say is really important. There are advantages, some claim, and the Buddha claimed, to his Dharma, of hearing things not heard before, clarifying things not heard before, dispelling doubt, straightening one's ideas, one's mind, and so on. He says, I will speak, listen carefully. So we have the alms round, we have bhikkhu, we have the Dharma, all being referenced here. Now this next word we'll pick up, we'll read on till we get it. The preference and should take delight in possessing the bare minimum. The yogins had always, now who were the yogins? Who were the yogins? This word here. These, maybe this is the Shramana movement, these are the ascetics that Buddha hung out with for 5 years. That led to him fasting. These are guys that lived in and still live in India today, wandering holy men who practice extreme ascetic forms of religion. Had always maintained that avoiding the 5 prohibitions would lead to infinite happiness. But, that's a big but. The Buddha himself found that just avoiding these didn't work. But by deliberately cultivating these positive states, I notice that the Buddha is emphasizing, it's the opposite, cultivating positive states of mind. And here with this really interesting word here, this word ecstasis. Ecstasis. What is the word ecstasis? Well, it's a kind of technical religious studies word. Remember, Armstrong's religious studies scholar. It means to stand outside the self or transcend oneself, having nothing to do with craving or greed that characterize so much of our waking lives. Could be redoubled. If you cultivate these things, you're going to be less gripped by other things. This is the negative and the positive spiritual disciplines in other world religions, Christianity, and so on. Let's look at one last idea here in this bit of text. Once this skillful behavior became so habitual, it was second nature. Fascinating to think about the idea of how skillful is being used here. It's skillfully using skillful. Here's another grenade, a debate. What is skillful? Well, for Theravada, the habits, especially the habit of renunciation, is what is skillful. For Mahayana, skillful takes on a wholly different idea, and it is this idea of skill in means, or upya. Skill in means is a very different idea in Mahayana that you should know from your studies. So we come to the end of this section here. Armstrong has explored the various opposites of the precepts that the Buddha could have been talking about without taking, importantly, she's avoiding contested areas, without taking sides on these debates, not mentioning later developments and ideas that could draw her into debates. It's a very Western stance on the Buddha that wouldn't be the stance of insiders. It's very, you know, it's a construction of the Buddha. You need to realize that. So we finish here.